Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the site of Sunday's deadly terror attack, which claimed the lives of 2 Israelis and critically injured another, where he vowed to confront terrorism by assuring the eternal presence of the Jewish people in their ancient homeland. The United Nations Human Rights Council has once again claimed to have found reasonable grounds that Israel committed humanitarian law and international human rights violations against Palestinians during violent protests along the Gaza border with the Jewish state. A meeting of the top military commanders of Iran, Syria and Iraq concluded in Damascus, after which the Islamic Republic and Assad regimes demanded an immediate withdrawal of US forces from the war-torn country. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the site of Sunday's deadly terror attack, which claimed the lives of 2 Israelis and critically injured another. In a televised statement to reporters who accompanied him, the Israeli leader sent his condolences to the families of those slain in the heinous attack, Staff Sergeant Gal Kaidan and Rabbi Achiad Ettinger, vowing to use all means necessary to defeat the murderers. Netanyahu further noted that the identity of the terrorist is known and that amid the ongoing manhunt, actions are underway against his family.
אנחנו יודעים את זהות המפגע. צה"ל והשב"כ וכוחות הביטחון במרדף צמוד אחריו. אנחנו יודעים גם היכן הוא גר. איתרנו את משפחתו. אני נתתי הבוקר הנחיות להתחיל בהריסת ביתו, וההכנות כבר החלו. יש תמיד פעולות שאנחנו עושים נגד המשפחות והחמולות של המרצחים הללו. כך עשינו גם אתמול וכך נמשיך לעשות. אני מציין דבר אחד. הם לא יעקרו אותנו מכאן. העוצמה שלנו היא כבירה.
The Prime Minister reiterated the eternal presence of the Jewish people in their ancient homeland by quoting a verse from the Bible in the book of Exodus, chapter 1, verse 12.
הטרוריסטים הללו לא יעקרו אותנו מכאן, ההפך הגמור יקרה. התשובה שלנו פשוטה. ככל שיענו, כן ירבה וכן יפרוץ.
Hundreds of mourners participated in Staff Sergeant Gal Kaidan's funeral. The 19-year-old IDF soldier was the first victim of the terror attack that was executed at a junction near the West Bank settlement of Ariel. He was laid to rest at the military cemetery in the southern Israeli city of Beersheba. Meanwhile, hundreds of mourners also attended the funeral of the Israeli civilian who was murdered, Rabbi Achiad Ettinger, a 47-year-old resident of the West Bank settlement of Eli, who left a wife and 12 children behind. Education Minister Naftali Bennett, who attended the funeral, delivered a eulogy, telling the rabbi's children that they could be proud of their father, who was the head of a religious seminary in a South Tel Aviv neighborhood. Minister Bennett, who is also a member of Jerusalem's Security Cabinet, stressed that the time has come to free Israel from the cabals of consciousness and legality, which according to him have limited the country's ability to win, deeming Jewish blood as the cheapest commodity in the Middle East.
כברך, אני אומר, דם יהודי לא יהיה עוד המצרך הזול ביותר במזרח התיכון. נגדע את הטרור רק על ידי שנשחרר את הכבלים התודעתיים והמשפטיים שמונעים מאיתנו לנצח.
It is important to note that the Israeli soldier who was critically injured in the attack is still fighting for his life. In response to the deadly terror attack, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced the planned construction of an entirely new neighborhood in the West Bank settlement of Ariel. Now to the Swiss city of Geneva, where the United Nations Human Rights Council has claimed to have found reasonable grounds that Israel committed humanitarian law and international human rights violations against Palestinians during violent protests along the border with Gaza and the Jewish state.
We found reasonable ground to believe that humanitarian law and international human rights violations have taken place. And it is also part of our mandate, and we said that in the long report. Those violations under human rights and humanitarian law may constitute international crimes violations. And therefore, we have asked the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights to present our report to the ICC, which is conducting an ongoing investigation.
The world body's War Crimes Commission head further stressed that Israel should avoid shooting what he termed as legitimate targets in cases in which terrorists operate from within civilian crowds in order to protect the lives of innocent people. The Human Rights Council, which has published more condemning reports against the Jewish state than against any other country around the world, refrained from condemning the Islamist Hamas organization, which controls the Gaza Strip, for its role in promoting and facilitating weekly violent protests. Additionally, the UN body abstained from criticizing civilian Palestinian protesters for their attempted breach of the Gazan border barrier into Israel, as well as their continued use of improvised explosives and incendiary kites and balloons against Israeli soldiers and civilians. In response to what Jerusalem termed as a theater of the absurd, hundreds of people attended a pro-Israeli demonstration in front of the UN Human Rights Council building, protesting its long-lasting bias against the Jewish state. Among those protesting was US Ambassador to Germany, Richard Grinnell, who accused the council of adopting a one-sided standard that could only be interpreted as anti-Semitism.
In the case of the Human Rights Council, anti-Semitism comes from the belief that the awesome responsibility of promoting human rights consists almost entirely of criticizing one small democracy already struggling to survive. To pass resolution after resolution on Israel while frequently ignoring China, Cuba, or Russia is a horrendous hypocrisy. Applying one standard to the state of Israel and not applying the same standard to others is anti-Semitic.
The protesters voiced growing frustration over the UN body's actions, terming its continued persecution of the state of Israel as a blatant injustice.
Il y a une flagrante injustice, probablement à cause de la composition de l'ONU qui comporte beaucoup de représentants de pays arabes et qui se sont ligués contre Israël.
Did human rights accuse Hamas for terrorizing Palestinians and for terrorizing Israelis? Nobody accuses Hamas.
Now to Israel's northern neighbor, where a meeting of the top military commanders of Iran, Syria, and Iraq concluded in Damascus, after which the Islamic Republic and Assad regimes demanded the immediate withdrawal of US forces from the war-torn country. They went on to threaten Washington's Kurdish allies to immediately submit to the return of state authority. In a press release, the Syrian defense minister underscored Syria's readiness for sacrifice if the United States decides to fight Damascus over the rule of its territory. The Iranian military chief, on his part, emphasized that discussions were underway regarding the implementation of measures aimed at regaining all of Syria's territory. General Bakari also praised the close relationship his country holds with Syria and Iraq, declaring their military cooperation to be on the highest level. The Iraqi military chief took the opportunity to announce that the Iraqi-Syrian border will be opened in the coming days, a move viewed by Iran's enemies as clear evidence of Tehran's growing influence over Baghdad.
ستشهد الأيام المقبلة إن شاء الله فتح المنفذ الحدودي واستمرار الزيارات والتجارة بين البلدين.
Despite the voiced threats and growing relations between Iraq and Iran, a Washington official reiterated to TV7 that the United States military will keep some forces in Syria in a declared effort to contain Tehran's destabilizing role in the region. Thank you for joining us. Keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Yair Pinto. Have a good evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.